Hello there, I'm Pete Snodden. Welcome to AIB Presents Movies and Mortgages, the web series that gives you all the hints and tips you need to make your dream home a reality. This is episode 3. Once again, I'm joined by our A-list experts from the self-build world, Patrick Bradley, leading architect and winner of Grand Designs, as well as Michael McClements, mortgage advisor with AIB. This week, we are talking trade, learning the lingo, and discussing the different routes you can take on your self-build journey. Patrick, Michael, great to see you again. Episode 3, and we've been building to this point. We've now got our architectural plans, we've got the design, and now we'll have to find some people to build our dream home. So when it comes to construction, we're looking at 2 methods, on the grip or contract-led. Patrick, can you break it down? Let's go back to basics. What's the difference?
You know, it's quite simple. You've got on the grip, you've got contractor-led. Contractor-led speaks for itself. Quite simply, you employ a contractor to make your dream designs come a reality. And then you've got obviously the other one, which is on the grip, which quite simply, you're going to go on the role of the contractor.
So there you go, the difference between on the grip and contractor-led. Michael, you've built your own home. What did you do?
Great. I know Patrick's a big advocate of contractor-led. I'm almost scared to say that I built mine on the grip. It was 15 years ago now. And it's all dependent on personal circumstances. I was very lucky. I had a father-in-law who had retired. He has a background in construction, had a great circle of friends that had a wide variety of trades experience behind them, and they were all willing and able to help. And that was a huge benefit. In terms of building on the grip, I think it is vital that you get the right warranties, the right insurances in place at the earliest point. That was certainly one of the biggest concerns that I had, that it would maybe miss out on putting the right policies in place. But if you do, and you protect against anything unforeseen happening, there's no reason you can't make it a success. It can be a challenge, can be very difficult and demanding on your time and your attention, but it can also be very rewarding as well.
I appreciate your father-in-law had a big helping hand. So if I was to say to you, if you were to do it the same way again, you would obviously say, yes, Pete, of course.
Absolutely not, Pete. No, times have changed, and we would possibly look to other ways of doing it. It was a great experience at that time, but there are pros and cons for both ways, and certainly a contractor-led approach may take a large element of the stress out of it for you.
Right, let's get into the pros and cons. And Michael said, Patrick, that you prefer contractor-led. And is that your slant? If you were recommending anything to anybody watching this right now, would it be solely go contractor-led?
To be completely honest with you, it's what does the person or the homeowner want to achieve out of this? You know, do they really want to get their hands dirty, the understanding of the construction, be the major part of how their house is going to come together? And that's the beauty of on the grip. But for me personally, I think the end goal is obviously seeing your design become a reality as quickly and as painless as possible. And as well as that, having the better control over your monies. The like of the contract will, in my opinion, will eliminate a lot of stress. They're going to take a lot of the liability of everything. They'll have a time scale to do the project. They'll have a fixed fee, which you obviously agree with them. And it just leaves the person, the homeowner, time to go and pick the nice things of the project. And for me, that experience is great. I would be an advocate of contract-led, but it's not for everyone. And if you have obviously got the relative, you got the family around you, you got your friends who's helped to pull you out with maybe on the grip, I can't see why it can't happen there.
Michael, you mentioned a little bit about insurances there. With regards to, the self-build specialist with AIB, do they help you out with that if you are going on the grip?
They absolutely do, Pete. And I think I referred to in one of the previous episodes, that was one of my biggest fears being it on the grip, is that there was some insurance policy, some warranty, some procedural item that I would possibly miss. And the self-build specialist will review all of that at the outset and give you a bit of guidance as to what you potentially should be looking at, what you should consider, and what you absolutely need. And that's great reassurance. But as a bank, we're happy to support either on the grip or contractor-led. It's entirely up to that individual's choice and circumstances at that time.
So, Michael, on the grip versus contractor-led, how does that affect the budget?
Well, the budget is driven by the project itself, Pete, and what you want out of the living space that you're going to create. A contractor will provide you with a fixed price contract, so the budget is almost established via that contract. On the grip, it's more difficult, and the customer
will compile a set of costs by speaking to tradesmen, by getting quotes for the materials, and a lot of it is subject to change at any stage. But it is a best endeavour costings at the early output. Now, the comfort we provide is our self-build specialist will review those costings and ensure that they're in line with the property that the customer is trying to build.
On the grip sounds like an awful lot of hard work, Patrick.
It's not for the faint-hearted, in my personal opinion. I think the whole purpose when people set out in life to design a house is that they want to create that design, that dream, and they want to get to the end product as painless and as free of stress as possible. And I am an advocate of the contractor. I am not going to say that. I think they've been in the game, they understand the game, they've got the experience, and I just feel that while risk all that, it may cost a little bit of a premium, but me personally in the long run, I do think, you know, a lot more can be achieved out of it. Time, stress-free, and you know, and enjoy that experience. Like, you don't have to put that block on, build the blocks. You don't have to do the piping. You don't have to try and organize that. Have comfort to sit back, you know, and watch it evolve. But at the same time, you can get involved.
The whole purpose of this episode is taking the plans and putting them into action. One thing, Patrick, you said from the offset is the importance of the QS. And at this stage of the game, this is where you need your QS.
Yeah, from the outset, I always maintain that at the early stage of the design, you get a quantity surveyor involved to obviously review what you've designed. And is it in your comfort zone or is it in your budget? And that's a necessity. Where it's really great, I think it comes back into that you then employ your quantity surveyor that you previously appointed, and you get production of a bill of quantities. And really what the bill of quantities, I firmly believe, is nearly the Bible in the construction, because it will measure absolutely everything that you have designed. And quite simply, when the contractor comes to price that project, what they'll end up doing is actually pricing what they call as a large construction shopping list. Each item will be priced. And in the successful contract, ourselves and the successful contractor, it'll all be itemized down. So you'll see where your money's is at. And both you and the contractor are both an equal playing field moving forward. It is a great, it's a great procedure. I do believe in self-build. You'll not get that relief of such that you will still go into the unknown. If materials rise, you pay for that. If things are not seen, you'll pay for that. So from the outset, I say prepare. And for me, that is one of the things that I'd be part of my preparation.
What happens if you change your mind? The build is started and perhaps you decide that you want a different finish in your bathroom, or you want to tweak the design in a certain way. How does that affect everything?
You literally know from the previous episodes, I'm a really advocate that at the first stage, you live, you breathe that design, you understand that design. And before moving to the next stage, you know that what you have created at that stage is going to be built. Trying to avoid any changes during the process of on-site will cost money. It's called variations. And that is one thing that I would try to suggest that all people to avoid. Now, certainly, if you do maybe pick a change of finish or a kitchen, I don't think that's a big issue, because within the contract, there'll be provisional sums allowed for you to go purchase kitchens, purchase bathrooms. So you have that scope to maybe chance and change and do different specifications. But please do avoid the likes of the change of the design. It is something that you'll not be able to control, and it's obviously one way that the contractor or we heads up to say, you know what, this is a change, this is the variation, give me more money.
So I'm going to ask you both. We'll start with you, Patrick. You're an architect and you've got a client and you're midway through the build and the phone goes and I've changed my mind. What do you say?
I say it's 5 o'clock on the weekend, I have to go. I'm only joking. Honestly, when I say to the client, I say, look, be very sure. That stage of the design and with the quantity surveyor, I cannot stress it enough, is the most important stage. I always advocate that. When it goes to site, that is really just going to see what you have designed and created, established in real life. But avoid and prepare. And that needs to be done at the early stages. Certainly we can change our minds. I'm not saying you can't, but be prepared. If you do change your minds in design, that can affect the cost of the budget.
And Michael, when it comes to you then, what's the story? If there is a tweak or something, or, and the client's on the phone, I suppose the self-build specialist ensures that doesn't happen from an early stage, I would imagine.
Yeah, although there are always slight changes, Pete, and it's a lot easier to change the drawdown arrangements in a finance package than it is to change the layout of rooms. So depending on the materiality of the change, if it's a revised drawdown payment, if it's an increase, then we can certainly look at it, and we are flexible enough and understanding enough to know that you want to do this once and you want to do it right, and if something fundamentally has changed, let's deal with it as and when it arises.
Michael, there's been other terms that have been used through the series so far, and I suppose it's a good opportunity just to tidy that up. So you mentioned LTV in previous episodes. Just remind us what that is and what way that affects the mortgage that you would get.
Absolutely. LTV is loan to value, the loan that you're borrowing against the value of the house at the end. And I think it's good to sort of look back on a couple of other concepts that feed into that. And the first is build costs. What are build costs? And what is against the final value? So in very simple terms, the build costs are the total cost that you spend to complete the build, including all professional fees, connection fees. That is the price you're paying to build this house. The final value is how much it could sell for in the open market once it's complete. So at the initial application stage, an independent mortgage valuer will go on site. They will look at your plans, your costings, they'll look at the site itself, comparables in the area, and they will tell us and yourself how much they expect that house would be worth in an open sale once completed. Now, we can fund 100% of those build costs, subject to the build costs themselves representing no more than 75% of the value at the end of the project. So if your house was going to cost £150,000 to build, it would need to value at £200,000 at the end in order to obtain the whole £150,000 by way of a mortgage. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Is there any other lingo that we need to know about? Now's the opportunity.
Yeah, well, loan to value is certainly in mortgage terms the one that is often talked about. Drawdown is a phrase that's thrown about by ourselves and the industry very easy, and it can be confusing for customers. Drawdown is just the stages at which you will take the funds from the mortgage company. So if we are lending £150,000 and you're taking it in stages of £50,000 at a time, that would be one drawdown. And it's important to note that you only pay back interest on what you've drawn down. So if your mortgage facility is for £150,000 and you're quoted a monthly payment of X, you will only pay a third of that as you draw down that first stage. And that will increase as the stages happen until you're at the final completion.
So we're at the building phase. Are we seeing the architect first, or are we seeing the builder first when it comes to getting those bricks in the ground?
Oh, it's always you're going to come to the architect first. They're the ones that's going to design up your dream. But at this stage, it's what I call the approval stage, the understanding stage, the document stage. Get them all in place, your budget's all in place. And then certainly, yes, you either approach a contractor, or if you're going on the grip, your subcontractors. But yes, certainly, you go with the architect first.
And I would suggest from a finance point of view, Pete, that the first thing that any customer does is sit down with their architect, as Patrick has said, thrash out what exactly do they want, and then spend some time thinking about how much they're prepared to pay for it. What's the cost implication going to be for this project, and how they can make that compromise fit. And then speak to ourselves at the earliest point. You know, let us re-establish that affordability, that eligibility, to ensure that the price you have in your mind is achievable from a funding perspective. That'll give you the comfort and the reassurance to go ahead and press ahead with plans with your builders, your architects, your quantity surveyors, so that whenever you have all those ducks lined up and the project is now shovel ready, as we talk about, that you have a project that is fundable and that the bank will be able to support.
And you know, this episode's been all about the lingo. On the grip versus contractor led, that's what we started off with. That's where we'll finish. In terms of your clients, in terms of what you see day to day, what's the trend? What are the majority of people going with?
You know, it's quite strange that you asked that, because the trend, I do believe, is changing from more and more on the contractor. I think 20 years ago when I started out as an architect, we had a lot of family and friends, a lot of people who were maybe in the trade, maybe a plumber, maybe a spark, who had the knowledge and the experience, which we all helped out. But I do see that changing. I see the likes of the trades are dying out. So more and more people are actually going that contractor route. But even in terms of, I think in the world that we live in, we don't seem to find that same time anymore. You know, we're always social media with different things. And the time is required to go on the grip, is a massive undertaking. So I think a lot of people appreciate that, and they understand that, and they don't want to add that extra bit of stress to their lives. So I can see more and more people go down the route of appointing a contract.
So that's it for Movies and Mortgages this time around. Join us for a final episode, episode 4, next time, when we discuss completing your self-build. And we're also in the company of Elaine Roves and Troves, who you'll know from Instagram, an award-winning self-builder and blogger. For more information, check out aibni.co.uk/selfbuild.